Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're taking a look at the life of Thomas Francis Meagher. And, well, I guess I should say we're going to be using Timothy Egan's book, The Immortal Irishman, to kind of guide us along the way.
Okay.
It's a pretty wild ride,
Yeah.
this guy.
Great.
I mean, poetry, revolution, exile, the Civil War, like, you name it.
Sounds like a pretty full life.
Yeah, he really packed it all in. But it's an incredible story, and I think one of the things that makes it so compelling is that he was born, into a wealthy family in Waterford, Ireland.
Oh, yeah?
So you'd think, like, okay, he's got this privileged upbringing. He might not be so aware of, like, the realities of British rule and the hardships faced by so many Irish people. But Egan even mentions a story about Meagher being demoted in a school play because he was mocking an English accent.
Oh, wow.
What do you make of that? Like, this rebellious streak showing up so early?
Well, it kind of tells you something about his personality, right? Like, he wasn't just going to accept things as they were.
Yeah.
Even as a child, he was kind of pushing back against authority.
Yeah, I guess so. It's interesting to think about that because you'd think someone from that background, might be a little more accepting of the way things are.
Right.
But he's not having it.
No, he's definitely got this independent spirit. And it seems like, early on, he's inspired by figures like Daniel O'Connell.
Right, the liberator.
Yeah. This guy's really fighting for Catholic rights in Ireland.
Yeah.
So Meagher's, obviously kind of soaking all of that up.
And that leads him to become really involved in the Young Ireland movement.
Right.
Which, much more radical than what O'Connell was advocating for.
Oh, yeah. They're definitely pushing for more drastic change.
Yeah. And one of the things that really struck me in Egan's book was the way he describes Meagher's staking style.
Oh, yeah?
Like, he says he had this mesmerism
Okay.
that taught people. Can you imagine being in the audience, like, listening to this guy speak?
Yeah. I mean, he must have been quite the orator, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like a real captivating presence.
Yeah. Especially in, a time when things are so tense, like socially and politically.
Exactly.
His words must have had so much power.
Yeah, he had that gift, I guess,
Yeah.
to really connect with an audience. And then, of course, we had the Great Hunger.
Oh, the famine.
Yeah, it was just devastating for Ireland
Absolutely.
in the 1840s. Egan really goes into the British government's response.
Or, I guess, lack of response.
Right. Yeah, it's heartbreaking to read about, how they handled it.
It really is.
And there's that one quote. It's chilling, really.
Oh, yeah, from Trevelyan.
Yeah, he was a British official, and he saw the famine, like, almost as an opportunity
I know.
to reduce the population.
It's unbelievable.
Can you imagine how that attitude must have affected someone like Meagher?
Oh, I'm sure it just fueled his anger.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he was already, fighting for Irish independence.
Right.
So to see this kind of callous indifference from the British government, it's just, adding fuel to the fire.
And then he gets involved in the 1848 rebellion.
And then he makes this crazy escape from custody.
It sounds like something out of a movie.
It does, right. Like, crowds are helping him. They're cutting the reins from his carriage. He almost gets caught, gives this impassioned speech at a bridge.
Really?
Yeah. It's so dramatic.
I guess his charisma was on full display there, huh?
Oh, yeah. And his ability to inspire people.
I mean, not just talking about it, but getting people to actually act.
I know. And like we said, it was a tense time.
Right.
I mean, people were ready for change.
Yeah, they were looking for someone to rally behind.
Yeah. But even with all that charisma, he ends up getting caught.
Oh, no.
They put him on trial.
Yeah.
They sentence him to death.
Oh, my goodness.
But thankfully, it gets commuted to exile in Tasmania,
Okay.
which at the time was a British penal colony.
Oh, wow. So what was life like in Tasmania? I mean, for an Irish exile?
Well, it was brutal.
Yeah.
Tasmania, this is where the British Empire is sending its worst criminals.
Okay.
Right. Egan, he describes it, let me see.
Oh, he's got a good description.
He says, it's a place with the choicest and rarest scoundrelism in all creation.
Oh, wow.
That's Tasmania.
Yeah.
So, can you imagine?
Going from the life he had before to that.
Talk about despair.
Yeah.
He's stripped of his freedom. He's transported to this harsh, unforgiving place.
It's a huge fall from grace.
Yeah, absolutely. But he does find ways to connect with other exiles there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Egan talks about these luncheons on a bridge that he would have with, these other young Irelanders who had also been banished.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, like, clandestine meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? Like, what do those meetings represent for him?
Oh, I'm sure they were a lifeline for
Yeah.
him. You know, you're in this isolated, desperate place.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's got these connections, these reminders that he's not alone.
Yeah. That his fight, his ideals, they're shared by others.
Exactly. It speaks to, like, the human need for connection, I think.
Absolutely.
Even when things are really bad.
Yeah. I mean, it shows that he was resilient.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, he wasn't giving up. But unfortunately, not all of those connections were, you know, what they seemed.
Oh, no. What do you mean?
There's a betrayal
A betrayal.
by this guy, John Donnellan Balfe.
Okay.
He was supposed to be a friend, but he was informing on the young Irelanders.
So he was like a spy.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow, that's a huge betrayal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, imagine, you know, you're already in this terrible situation.
Yeah.
And then to have someone you trust, you know, turn on you like that.
It's gotta be devastating.
Must have been just crushing.
Yeah.
But, you know, Meagher, he's not easily deterred.
Oh, so what does he do?
He orchestrates this daring escape from Tasmania.
Oh, wow, another escape.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, what happened?
He's got these gold prospectors helping him.
Gold prospectors, okay.
They use signal fires.
Oh, wow.
They make this treacherous journey across Bass Strait.
Bass Strait, wow.
It's incredible.
He's a brave guy.
I mean, it's hard to believe he pulled it off.
I know.
So you have to wonder, like, what drove him to take such a risk?
Well, clearly he's a man who values his freedom,
Yeah.
right? Like, he can't be contained.
Yeah, he doesn't let anything hold him back.
I mean, physical boundaries, ideological boundaries, none of it.
Yeah, it's like he knew he had unfinished business out there.
Yeah.
He had a purpose beyond Tasmania.
Yeah.
And that purpose, it seems, it leads him to the bustling streets of New York City
Okay.
in 1852.
Wow, quite a change of scenery.
Yeah, imagine that. From this
Yeah.
isolated penal colony
Right.
to the heart of, you know, this booming metropolis.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole new world.
It is. And, you know, New York at that time, it was just, I mean, the energy,
Well, you can even imagine.
the sensory overload.
Yeah,
It was a melting pot of cultures.
I bet.
I mean, possibilities everywhere, but also, you know, plenty of challenges.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a tough place, too.
Uh-huh. A lot of Irish people there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, New York had a huge Irish community at the time.
Yeah.
Many of them, you know, fleeing the famine, fleeing the hardships of British rule.
Makes sense.
So for Meagher, you know, this must have been, I don't know, comforting in a way.
Oh, definitely.
Like a little bit of familiarity in this brand new world.
I mean, a shared history, a network of support.
Yeah.
You know, people who understand where you're coming from.
It's no wonder he quickly gets involved in, you know, advocating for the Irish community there.
Right, because he's always been a fighter for, you know, the underdog.
Exactly.
For people who are being treated unfairly.
And he really had to be vocal at that time because, I mean, this is also the time of the know-nothings. Oh, right.
This political movement that was just, I mean, so anti-immigrant, anti-Catholic.
A lot of prejudice back then.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of a reminder that the American dream wasn't always so welcoming.
Especially to newcomers.
Yeah.
Especially to people who are different.
I mean, even to people fleeing oppression, you know?
Right. And it's interesting, isn't it, to see Meagher, who had, you know, fought against British tyranny in Ireland.
Right.
Now he finds himself fighting against prejudice and discrimination in America.
Yeah. Different battle, same spirit. Right.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, and he wasn't afraid to call them out.
What do you mean?
Well, there's this moment, Egan talks about it.
Okay.
Where he's in Boston, which was, you know, like a real know-nothing stronghold.
Oh, okay.
And Meagher just, you know, proclaims know-nothingism is dead.
Wow.
Like right in their faces.
Bold move.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you he was not backing down.
No, not at all. He was committed to that fight for justice.
Wherever it took him. Yeah. And speaking of justice, I mean, as America is grappling with slavery, Meagher's views start to evolve too.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because at first he was kind of tolerant of it.
Yeah.
Like he didn't really seem to, you know, see it as this huge moral issue.
Oh.
But then he becomes more and more uneasy about it.
Okay.
You know, as he sees what's happening.
So he starts speaking out against it.
Yeah, eventually he's denouncing slavery outright.
Wow. So what do you think changed? Like what caused that shift in his thinking?
I don't know. I mean, maybe witnessing the realities of it firsthand.
Right.
You know, seeing the brutality.
Yeah.
Hearing the stories.
The human cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to have had an impact, and it put him at odds with some of his old comrades from, back in the Young Ireland days.
Oh, really? Like who?
Well, John Mitchell, for example.
Yeah.
He actually embraced pro-slavery ideology.
Wow. So they went their separate ways.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Yeah, it was a dividing line for a lot of people. And then, of course, we have the Civil War.
The war that really changed everything.
Yeah, a defining moment for the nation and also, for Meagher's life.
I bet.
I mean, he doesn't hesitate.
Oh, so he enlists.
Oh, yeah.
On which side?
The Union side.
Okay.
He sees it as a chance for the Irish to, prove their loyalty to their adopted country.
Makes sense.
And that's how the Irish Brigade is born.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, another example of Meagher's ability to just rally people, to inspire them.
I mean, it's a powerful symbol, right?
Yeah, not just military might, but like Irish-American identity.
Yeah. So what's their story in the war?
Well, it's a story of bravery, but also tragedy.
Oh.
They saw some of the most intense fighting of the entire war.
Wow.
Heavy losses at battles like Bull Run,
Oh, wow.
Fair Oaks, Antietam.
Yeah, some of the most famous battles.
I mean, Egan's account of those battles, it's gripping. You
Yeah.
can almost feel the chaos, the carnage,
Yeah.
and the determination of these men. Yeah, they were fighting for something they believed in.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's this detail about the death feast at Fredericksburg.
Death Feast?
Yeah. It's pretty chilling.
What is it?
So basically, a cannonball, right,
Okay.
lands in the middle of, like, this meal they're having.
Oh, wow.
This Christmas feast.
So, like, a stark reminder of, like, the realities of war.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just a constant reminder of the danger. And then, back in New York City, you have the draft riots.
Oh, right.
I mean, can you imagine?
What was Meagher's reaction?
Oh, he condemned them. I mean,
Okay.
here he is fighting for the Union.
Yeah.
And back in his own city, people are rioting against the draft.
So much tension at the time.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of it was fueled by, anti-Black sentiment, anti-immigrant sentiment.
So complicated.
It was. It was. And it put Meagher in a really difficult position.
Yeah, but
Because he's trying to stay true to his principles. But he's also aware of the fears and anxieties of, some of his fellow Irishmen.
tough spot.
It was. The Irish Brigade, I mean, they suffered terrible losses throughout the war.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Morale was low.
Yeah.
And Meagher, he was dealing with his own demons.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, the weight of all those losses.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And eventually, he resigns his command.
Couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a tragic end
Yeah.
for a unit that, started with so much hope and promise.
Yeah, that's the thing about war.
Yeah.
It takes a toll on everyone.
It does. It does. But Meagher, it seems, he just needed a new challenge.
Oh, so what does he do?
He heads west.
West.
He becomes the Secretary of Montana Territory.
Montana.
Wild, untamed land in the post-war years.
Quite a change from, the battlefields of the Civil War.
Yeah. Talk about a change of scenery.
It's like a whole different world out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, why do you think he chose to go to Montana?
Well, maybe he saw it as a chance to kind of shape a new society.
Okay.
Bring some order to this untamed frontier.
Yeah, make his mark.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe he just needed to change.
Yeah.
Needed to heal, needed to get away from all the trauma of the war.
Yeah, I can see that.
But whatever his reasons, things didn't exactly go smoothly for him in Montana.
No, I mean, Egan talks about this clash he had with vigilante justice. Yeah, like he was really appalled by the tactics of groups like the Vigilance Committee.
Right, these guys who were basically operating outside the law.
Yeah, they were taking justice into their own hands.
Yeah, frontier justice, right.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me because here's Meagher, who was once a revolutionary himself.
Right.
Now he's defending the rule of law.
Against these self-appointed enforcers.
Exactly.
So it's like his whole idea of justice had evolved, right?
Yeah, I mean, he had seen what could happen when mobs took over.
Yeah, it can get pretty ugly.
It can, and he believed in due process.
Right, giving people a fair trial.
Yeah, and there's this moment, Egan describes it,
Okay.
where Meagher sees the hanging tree in Helena.
Oh, wow.
A real symbol of vigilante violence.
Yeah, a grim reminder.
Oh, yeah. And he's disgusted by it.
I can imagine.
But he wasn't afraid to stand up to these guys.
Even though they were powerful.
Oh, yeah. Like Wilbur Sanders, for example. He was one of the leaders of the vigilantes.
Okay.
And Meagher, he basically told him to his face, like, this is wrong.
I mean, that took guts.
Oh, yeah. He knew it was making him enemies.
Yeah. But speaking of enemies, we have to talk about the mystery surrounding Meagher's death.
Oh, yeah. The drowning in the Missouri River.
Yeah. I mean, the circumstances are kind of suspicious, right?
Well, yeah. Egan hints at the possibility of foul play.
You think so?
Yeah. Especially given his outspoken opposition to the vigilantes.
It does make you wonder.
It does. It's like maybe his enemies finally caught up with him.
I mean, it's a tragic end to such an adventurous life.
It really is. But even though, his life was cut short, Meagher's impact is undeniable.
Right. It's not about how long you live. It's about what you do with the time you have.
Exactly. He left his mark on both Irish and American history.
He never found that peaceful place he was looking for.
No, but as Egan puts it, he never found the place, but he found his people.
That's a really beautiful way to put it.
It is.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what do you think makes Meagher so compelling? Like, why should we care about this guy all these years later?
Well, I think it's his passion. His willingness to stand up for what he believed in no matter what. And he was a man of contradictions too, right?
Yeah.
Full of passion and flaws. But he was always striving for something greater than himself.
Yeah. It's inspiring.
Yeah, I think so. He embodies the immigrant experience in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that search for belonging, for a better life.
Yeah, and that struggle for justice.
In a world that often resists change.
Yeah, and he never stopped fighting.
He didn't. His story is a reminder that, life isn't always black and white.
There's a lot of gray areas.
Yeah, and that heroism can be messy, it can be complicated.
It's not always the straight path.
No, it's not. Well, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the life of Thomas Francis Meagher.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope you found it as fascinating as we did, and we encourage you to, explore Meagher's story further.
Yeah, read Egan's book. Dive into the history of the Irish Brigade.
Yeah, you might be surprised by what you discover.
And who knows, you might even find some inspiration for your own life.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Loved this video? Smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And don't forget to order the book, link below.